Clayface, if it was directed by Jordan Peele. Clayface is a Batman villain known amongst comic book fans. Although not as well known as Batman villains like the Joker or the Penguin, Clayface is still an important part of Batman's rogues gallery. With villain solo movies and shows on the rise lately, it's the perfect time to push for not as well known characters on the big screen, but with a twist. Joker was Taxi Driver dressed as a DC Comics movie. The Penguin is a dark criminal underworld mafia movie dressed as a DC show. But what would a solo Clayface movie be like? If I were to make a Clayface movie, I'd make it a body horror monster movie filled with suspense and creepy visual effects. My Clayface movie would be heavily influenced by Ethan Bennett's origin story and his transformation into Clayface in the 2004 The Batman cartoon series. It's a cool, tragic take on the character and one I really enjoyed watching. Meet Ethan Bennett, a recently promoted detective who's just transferred from Metropolis Police to Gotham PD. He's set on doing things right and having integrity as a member of the Gotham Police Force. In a city where crime, corruption, and bribery run rampant in the city, Bennett wants to make a real difference. He's been assigned as partner to Yin, an older female detective with a grumpy attitude and a dislike for her superior chief, Chief Rojas. She isolates herself from the rest of the officers and detectives because Rojas has an old boys network going on. He's a tyrant when it comes to the police department and wants things to run his way and only his friends to rise up in power. This is something that's been going on for decades, and unfortunately, Yin was never in Rojas's inner circle, and neither was Bennett, which is why he was partnered with Yin. But there's something deeper and sketchier going on in the Gotham Police Department. Rojas rules with an iron fist, and often bullies other police officers into doing his bidding, and rewards those who follow through with his illegal and abusive orders. While filing paperwork one day, Ethan witnesses police officer Harvey Bullock beating the crap out of a petty thief who wasn't cooperating. The other officers turned around as if they didn't see anything. Ethan is astounded. He turns to Yin. "You're just gonna sit there?" he asks as Harvey Bullock keeps pounding on the thief. Ethan jumps in and threatens to report the police officer. He storms into Rojas' office, who calmly tells Bennett to close the door. As Harvey continues to brutally beat the crap out of the alleged criminal, Rojas tells Bennett that's how things are done around here, and if he wants to go anywhere in this department, he better learn to play along. Things get even sketchier when he's been assigned his first missing persons case. The same thief who was beaten up by Bullock suddenly disappears. His worried mother calls the cops, and Yin and Bennett are tasked with figuring out what the hell happened. Bullock says the suspect was let go because they couldn't get the guy to choke up anything and incriminate himself. "What a chum," Bullock says. But Bennett keeps diligent on the case, and Yin doesn't really care. She spends most of the time shotgunning Bennett, drinking coffee and smoking cigarettes. Bennett starts losing his shit. How can you be so uncaring when there's obviously something fucked up going on? Yin shrugs. You'll learn soon enough. The missing person suddenly turns up washed up in Gotham Harbor, but he's covered in some kind of putty-like substance. The cadaver looks mummified and disfigured because of this toxic putty covering his body. Everyone on scene is nonchalant about it. Apparently it's the fifth dead person that's washed up with this toxic-looking putty. The way I see it, if they were criminals, they had it coming, Rojas says. Bennett can't believe that no one cares. There needs to be answers. A formal investigation done. They're law enforcement officers, for God's sakes. He convinces one of the on-site CSI guys to take a sample of the putty off the record. Bennett also makes a public statement at the Gotham City newspaper, vowing to put an end to these mysterious murders. The headline of the story, Detective Vows to Catch Clayface Serial Killer. Back at the station, all the police officers and detectives are mugging Bennett. They're not happy with his public declarations. Rojas calls Bennett into his office and chews him out. "You don't talk to the press unless I tell you to. And this Clayface bullshit you're stirring up in the news is costing me my ass. Now I got the mayor breathing down my neck wanting an explanation. Don't ever talk to the press without my permission. Oh, and you're suspended. Give me your badge." "What about the case?" Bennett asks. "I'll handle it." Bennett isn't giving up. He's tenacious. Something's not right, and Bennett wants to get to the bottom of it. He goes to the CSI forensic scientist from earlier, who doesn't want to tell him anything about what he discovered, for fear of retaliation from Rojas. But Bennett has had the last straw with Rojas. He wants answers. He's pissed. He threatens the scientist with a gun, and the forensic scientist finally breaks. He discovers that the putty is an adhesive developed by a now bankrupt company from Gotham City. The warehouse is abandoned, but still standing near the Gotham Harbor. the same place where the dead body washed ashore. Bennett goes to the abandoned warehouse for some answers, but what he finds shocks him. It's Rojas and a bunch of detectives from the station. They're torturing another petty thief they caught. Bennett watches as hot putty is poured onto the thief, killing him instantly and melting his skin into the putty. "You should have let it go, Bennett," Rojas says as he hits him with a pipe. The other cops start beating the crap out of him too. They tie him up to a chair and torture him. Bennett is cooked, bleeding, bruised. "Out here, we don't let Boy Scouts with trousers lock up criminals just for them to end up back on the streets doing the same crimes, hurting more people. Here, we make sure they stay dead," Rojas says. Rojas's goons bring in a cement mixer, except it's full of that toxic putty that killed the thief earlier. They pour the hot substance onto Bennett and he screams in agony. He's in utter pain, his skin is on fire. What once was a rookie detective trying to do the right thing was now a disfigured mass of putty. "Get rid of him," Rojas says to his goons as he leaves the warehouse. As the corrupt cops throw the other thief onto the harbor, we notice Bennett is still alive. Except parts of his body are morphing. His limbs no longer look like human parts. They're constantly changing into different shapes and sizes. He no longer looks human but a monstrous blob, and growing more than 7 feet tall. Some kind of a mouth opens and a disgusting roar bellows out of the putty monster. He brutally kills the cops, smashing them with a giant fist. One cop pulls out his pistol and shoots a couple rounds into Clayface, but Clayface just absorbs the bullets and throws him across the warehouse. The Clayface monster has fun with his last victim. He slowly pours putty from his own endless supply from his body onto the victim, covering every pore in his body with putty until he dies. A day later, Rojas returns to the warehouse to see his goons dead. The only survivor who was flung across the warehouse manages one last breath before he dies. Clayface did this. Somewhere near Gotham Harbor, Bennett is disgusted with himself. He looks at his own reflection. He no longer looks human. He's this giant, ugly, disgusting Frankenstein monster. But in his own rage and his own anger, he vows to take revenge on Rojas and the cops who did this to him. Maybe somewhere down the line in the movie, he even meets with Yin and she helps him. Maybe we even encounter Batman, who only sees this heaping monster terrorizing Gotham PD, but doesn't see the big picture of what actually happened. Maybe Rojas declares Bennett a victim of Clayface and turns the whole city against the putty monster who is trying to kill Rojas. It can be a revenge story gone wrong where Bennett is the victim, because Bennett ironically becomes the murderer he was trying to take down. He lived long enough to see himself become the villain, and I think that would be an awesome take on the character and one we haven't seen on screen before. Director and actors. I think Jordan Peele would be the perfect choice to direct this movie. His success in the horror genre and his fascination with scaring the shit out of people makes me want to see his version of Clayface on the big screen. To play Bennett, I think Daniel Kaluuya, I totally mispronounced that, would be perfect for the role since he's a frequent collaborator of Jordan Peele's. For Yin, I think Michelle Yeoh would be perfect. I totally mispronounced her name, by the way. I saw her in Everything Everywhere at Once. In that movie, she had a lot of energy and was kicking ass. And in this one, she'd be a lot more mellow. Someone who's been beaten down by life and the corrupt system. I feel like her experience and her age would make her perfect for this kind of role. Anti-heroes and villain movies have become the new thing in Hollywood. And I hope they explore making movies about lesser-known villains as well. Clayface, or any one of Batman's rogues gallery, would make a great solo movie if done right. That's why I think Hollywood should give it a shot with Clayface and show us something different. I would want this movie to be like RoboCop and Frankenstein meet the Joker. That's how I would pitch it. Maybe make it a Max series like The Penguin. So what are your thoughts on this Clayface movie? What DC Comics villain solo movie would you want to see? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, consider liking and subscribing. I'll be posting more videos like this one. My name is Clayface, and
it's Lady Gaga! Pull up in that mask where you just want some fanfare. These days humble come rare. Flashy looks, people stare. You're so lost like tears in rain. Run your mouth, you're still in chains. Useless, you should be ashamed. Crying like a kid in pain. Real power lies in shadows. You fake flex more like cowards. You live your life so shallow. The choke hard pill to swallow. You worry about perception. Well, I'm out here full